Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. I'll get going here on the demonstration. So this all came about because I was trying to, that's in that one. So AutoDD over here on the Autodesk Fusion 360 forum just posted this issue that they were having. This is my first project. I need help. He's trying to post-process his CAM to his ShotBot control software, and he had some errors. So it turns out that it was a simple fix. He had his or her, I'm not positive. I'll show you here in the CAM workspace under Tool 0. If I edit, it's under Coolant. They just had it set for air. So on the ShotBot control or post processor, if you have it set to air, it will error out ERROR. So all they had to do was set it to disable, okay, for all three of those tool paths, and then they'd be able to post process. So, but more to the point, I offered to just show some tips on modeling, because I noticed some things in here that I kind of struggled with when I started. And so my first recommendation was just to start over, because I know when I was getting into it, every time I would model something, I'd get faster and faster at it. So my recommendation was just to start over. You made it to a good point. Thought it was interesting. If I scroll through the timeline here, you can just see all the different steps that it took to get here. And I really think this can be accomplished with a lot less, just for better management, if nothing else. So I think a lot of these are just creating the dog bone holes so that the bit can get in here and create clearance for these other parts. But even that, we can do some better things there. So first thing I want to do is actually scroll to, I think it's right here. There's two, it's two end tables. Okay, so they're not going to join us for this. That's okay. So it's two end tables. And I'm going to go ahead and step back. Till I find where it's right before the components. Okay, so this is what the end result, their desired result is. And a way we can get here easier, if we look at it, it's an assembly made up of one component, which would be the side panel. I'd call this the top shelf, maybe, the bottom shelf. And then these, let's see what they ended up calling it. So they just called them top. So we got left panel, right panel, shelf, bottom, top. But you notice here in the tree that all these components it's top 5:1. The issue there is that for every modification you make to one of these, you actually have to make it to all of them because they're all unique. So you really have 4 components here, and we can start with where this is at here and create a new file and get back here a lot quicker. So let's go and do that now. So, what I'm going to do here is actually create I'll just create 4 sketches. I think that would be the fastest way. So I'm going to do it on the inside because there's some slots in here that we want to cut out. Inside here, just stop sketch. I want to go up here and so sketch 318. So that's an example. There's 318 sketches in this file. So we've got the side panel. Let's go ahead and create another sketch. I'm going to call it just do it here, just the upper rib. Another sketch, make it top of this top panel. Stop sketch, and then one more for the bottom shelf. Stop sketch. Now another thing I did was I looked at the parameters, because that's the big thing with parametric modeling, is that if you can set up your parameters in advance or as you're creating them, you'll save yourself a lot of time down the road if you need to change the design or modify it for something else. So what I did, I just went and screen captured this parameter window, and I've just got that here. So I can pull that up when I'm creating the new design. Let's go ahead and start our new file. I want to, now here's where it gets to rule number 1 for Fusion 360, create new components. I'm going to go ahead and start a new component. I'm going to call this side panel. Make sure that's active. I want to go back here. I can't copy this sketch, but I can save them all as DXF files. So I'll just do that right to my desktop. The other cool thing with saving as a DXF is if you have a laser cutter, this is how I get my files out to my laser cutter. So I just create a sketch of the surface that I want to cut on the laser cutter, and then I pull it right into the laser cutter control software. This is upper shelf, and this one is lower shelf. Go into our new file. Our side panel is active as the new component. I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to insert DXF on that plane. Select my DXF. It's going to be side panel. Just go OK. So at this point, you can go ahead and extrude this actually. And I'm just going to extrude it 1 inch for right now. Do those 2 because I know we're going to cut those out. Okay. So there you go. You've got one sketch, one extrude, and you've got one component taken care of. Now, like I said before about the parameters, let's go ahead and open up our parameter window. Let's make sure I went back to the main. I'm going to save this. Put, 5. Open up our parameter window here so we can see it. I actually have to pull it up to my other screen, so you won't be able to see it, but I can still see it. I'm just going to copy these parameters over. Now there's an add-in. What is it? If you go to the add-in store for Fusion 360, I don't know if that's what it's called. I'll show you right here. Add-ins, Fusion 360 App Store. You can find this add-in called, I'm just going to search for it real fast. I think it's called CSV. Yeah, it's parameter I/O. If you use that, you can export a parameter from one file and you can import it into a new file, which is very helpful. So, but for me, I'm just going to go ahead and manually insert these because we can do that quick. We've got height, 24 inches. We've got width, one width, but I'm going to go ahead and do width T for top. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to put 16. Width E for bottom, 24. Depth. I haven't gone through the original file to make sure I know exactly what all these mean, but depth seems 9 still. I'm going to go ahead and say that's, well, I'll just leave it as 9 for now. Go back in there and see what it is. Now there's a tolerance setting in here, which I hit. So when people do this, 1 by 32 times 1 inch. Kick. You know that the kick, you just put the gap at the bottom in on the inside. Apply. This is a good one you always want to put in there, just so you know. When you do, I do a lot of combining between components to create slots and things like that, and you want to make sure that your ply is accurate, just because otherwise when you get out to the machine and you cut it, it's just not going to fit. So we got 0.5. I know our half-inch ply is actually 0.485 typically, so but even that I measure all the time. Cutter. So this is, some people would call this bit diameter, 0.25. It's good for when you're creating things like dog holes or dog bone holes. Hook. I'm not positive what that's for, but we might look and find out. 3.5. Leg. And this is the foot, the part that touches the floor. This is the length of that. 7 inches. Shelf. 10 inches. I know that this is to the bottom of the upper shelf, not the very top, but and then blind pocket. This is another good one to put in. It's great that you can use other parameters in parameters. So here I'm just going to do ply times 0.7, which is 7.75 depending on what you're using. That works really well. So there we go. We've got all our parameters put in there. Took us a couple minutes, but now, so instead of moving forward, what we want to do is make this component parametric, and we're going to do that by going back into the sketch, and you can see all these lines are blue. It starts at the origin here, but let's go ahead and throw in some dimensions, and that'll get us to a bigger spot. So we're going to width, bottom. The issue here is you can see a lot of these. I can't do multiple at one time, but I can go that, make sure that these guys are all horizontal, vertical constraints. That guy there. What I'm probably going to do here, well, let's just start at, I'm going to do a line from this mid up to this mid. Click on that and hit X to make that a construction line. And I'm going to make sure that's highlighted, and I want to make that horizontal vertical. So that's throwing off some things down here. One thing I would recommend doing is saving, unless these rounded edges are super critical, they got to be the right radius. I would just, I'd save the fillets for later. Just going to go extend these lines. There we go. Pull this. You can click on other dimensions too. So I'm going to just click on that one, divide by 2. That got funky. And I think that's just because this guy here is not. Another cool constraint is you can do collinear. So I'm going to click on this edge, and I want it to be collinear with that one. And here, you could make this apparent. Well, actually, this is the kick one. So I'm going to just make that dimension for kick. Here's another. So we've got overall width. But we can do another thing. If you see something blue, you can grab it and kind of pull it around and see, well, what's going on here. Why is that not locked down? So I know that this one's actually, I think they called it foot maybe, or base leg. That's what it was called. And then you see that this one's blue, so we're actually going to just put an equals constraint for that and that. Do our overall height. That's locked down. Center hole. Kind of a cool look to it, but let's make it actually. Let's center it on this shelf line here. So I'm going to make that horizontal vertical. I'll do this one too. All these 3 point. That must have been the hook was 3.5 then. That's why. Spend more time on this than you'd have to, because you could come in here and just lock everything that was existing. This one, call that I. Let me go ahead and delete these guys because I actually just want them to mirror around. Make that construction for now, right, too. Just going to add the diameter there for images. These guys are still blue, and that's because the location on the side panel has not been established yet. So if we want to go dimension, let's go from our center line. Let's go from there to there. Call that distance. Yeah, 6.75. And then if the goal here was to line those up, we can do a collinear between those two. Now, oftentimes when you get this, you'll have 4 lines that create a rectangle. You can just go through and do perpendicular. So this bottom line's blocked in, but these ones, I just want to make them all perpendicular to that. And that's going to lock all those down. So there we go. Do the same thing for this line or this slot. I'm going to go 5.5. Height, again, that one was supposed to be shelf. And again, we got the one black line, the three blues, so we'll just go through and perpendicular, especially when you got a rectangle like this. You just want to make sure it's all good. So now instead of redrawing those over here, what I'm going to do is double click, hold shift, double click, come up to sketch. I'm going to mirror. It's already got the 8 selected objects. I'm going to mirror them around what mirror line? I'm going to do this construction line here. OK. Now we've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 slots here. What I'm going to do is, instead of drawing each of them, I'm going to delete all but the center one. Dimension that from the top here. Let's call it inch. This is ply. The one locked. Actually, this needs to be horizontal also, or not for some reason. Let's go symmetry. Those two are on that construction line. It's not, what's going on here? Let's just draw a new slot. Go ahead and go rectangle, R for rectangle. We're just going to pull it over. Let's go with, just call it 2 and ply. Symmetry, U and U, third click. Let's try this again. Not sure why this is not locking on there. Failed to solve, please try revising dimensions or constraints. So it's not allowing that to do it. So, well, maybe we're just clicking on the wrong line. Let's go U, U, and let's come down here. Nope, it does not want to do it. Interesting. Inch. High. Just the order of operations thing there. So that works. So now we got that. Now we can stop our sketch. Go back to our extrude. We don't want to extrude that. Let's go ahead and leave those like that for now. We don't want to extrude that one either. Okay. And so we're going to come back and make that side panel active. And we're going to do another extrude. And we're going to come up to our sketches in here and turn that back on. And what we're going to do is select that and that. And we're going to extrude it by pocket and pocket. Cutting. There we go. Let's go back to this first one. So what I'm going to do is pattern. My big advice to the original creator was to focus on patterns. So I'm going to take that one away. And one of the things you can do with a pattern is you can pattern features. And so that's useful for things like this on the side panel. What I want to do is create a new extrude. So before, in the original file, I'll just show it to you real quick. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sketches before a single extrude. And it gets really confusing when you're going back and trying to edit it. Here, I put all the information that I know is going to stay consistent on this component. I put it in one sketch, and then I extrude the first component, and I extrude a second feature on that component, and now I'm going to extrude one more, and then I'll be able to pattern this one, as you'll see. I'm going to extrude. Again, that sketch is still active. I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to cut it by apply. So cut it all the way through. Or it should, oh, okay, that's why. Our original, remember I did it by 1 inch. It should be ply here. That's through all the way. So now I'm going to turn this sketch off. Now I'm going to show you the power of patterning features. So you can come up here to create, pattern. I'm going to do a rectangular pattern. Up under here, under pattern type, I'm going to make sure I've got features selected. I'm going to click on that last extrude I did. I'm going to choose the direction. I'm just going to click on this top line. And just to give yourself a little preview, you can pull that out. It's popping up better on that side. So on this one, I want to do, I want my spacing. Well, no, let's do extent, because we know our top width. For direction type, let's do symmetric. Originally they had 7. Distance, let's do T for top. By 2 because we're doing symmetric. And let's do minus minus 1 inch. Let's see how that looks. Cool thing when you're in there in the patterns, if say you excuse me, say you don't want them all to show up, if you click on the suppress here, you can actually remove, if you click on that checkbox, that one goes away. Just a little tip there. Let's go back and undo that. Now here you go. You've got your main side panel component. I'm going to go back to my top level. And now instead of, here's what a lot of people do. They might even mirror this. This is something I used to do all the time. So I would do that, and then I'd go width, or what did they call it? I think depth. And then I would mirror it around this. And the issue with this is if I mirror this component around this plane, it looks great. That's awesome. That's what that's what I want. But the issue is when you go downstream in your timeline, you're going to run into some issues where if you edit this, the original one, or if you edit the mirrored one, it doesn't actually get reflected in both components. This is something you need to know in advance. If you want them to be individual, this is the way to do it. But if you don't want them to be individual, there's a better way. So let's go here. What I want to do is make sure I'm in my top level. I'm going to click on the side panel. I'm going to hit M for move. Now, before you ever move anything, you want to click right here on Create Copy. And now I'm going to grab this arrow, I'm going to pull it over, I'm going to go minus depth minus I. And then I'm also going to spin this 180. And hit enter. And now you can see over my tree, I've got side panel 1, side panel 2. So even if I go in here to side panel 2, make it active, let's say I'm going to extrude, or rather, I'll just go in and do a sketch right here. As for shortcut, center point rectangle, perfect, stop sketch, extrude, blow that out, okay. Now you can see that happened to my original component as well, which is useful. It'll save you a lot of time downstream. So I'm going to undo that. And, okay, and now I've got the biggest component out of the way. The next thing I'm going to do on this is I'm going to create the upper shelf. I did those sketches before, but now that I'm in here, let's do it quicker. We can do upper shelf. Make it active. I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to do it on this plane here. And what I want to do is make a rectangle. You can slice, just get that one out of the way. Make sure everything looks right. Now it's going to be a rectangle. So I can just pull this over and get my horizontals, but you can see nothing else is really locked in. So what I want to do is make this point coincident with that line, this point with that line. I'm going to do collinears, my bottom, that, and there you go. It's locked in. So at this point, I can stop this sketch. I can start extruding. So the first thing I want to do is actually extrude all of this. I want to do it. Well, let's start with the easy way. So if I click on that, I want to start on the profile plane. I want to do it to an object. I'm just going to do it to this face here. Now, if you get this error, don't worry. You can do extend faces, and that'll just make sure it hits whatever you selected, if there's an opportunity for it. So then I'm going to go OK. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do another extrude. And this time I'm going to actually turn off side panel 1 and 2. Actually, let's just turn that sketch back on. Trick here, so profile. I know that profile is right in here, and I'm just going to left click and hold. It's going to pop up my options. Face, no. That face, no. Profile, yes. I want the profile. Do it down here too. Click and hold. Face, no. Face, no. Profile, yes. Profiles are from your sketches. So if I'm doing the face, it's going to pull it. It would still work, but that's not the right way to do it. So now I want to pull it this way. And how long do I want to pull it? I want to pull it my pocket. Line pocket. Now it defaults to cut, but I don't want to cut. I want to join. And it knows because I'm in my upper shelf, it's going to join it to the upper shelf. So go OK. And now I can do the same thing on the other side, but I want to show you a different way to do it. I'm going to go back to my main top level, make it the active level. I'm going to turn off this sketch so I don't have to keep looking at it. I'm going to create a construction plane, but I'm going to do a mid plane. So the mid plane is great because I click on that. I'm going to click on this outside face, go OK. So now that created a plane that's always going to be in the middle of those two faces. So even if I come in here and if I make my depth 12 inches, that's because I did not, when I moved it, scope mirror parameters. Currently, that shelf's not locked in. Okay, so there's my issue. So if you move a component, you'll get this little pop-up up here, position. So you can capture it there, which I don't want to do, or I can revert it to where it was, which is what I do want to do. So I'm going to revert that, and I want to go ahead and lock on this side panel 1. So I'm going to select it, right-click, and I'm going to, where's my ground? There it is, way up top. I ground it. So now I can't move that one. I can grab this upper shelf, I can grab that one, but I can't move that one. I'm going to revert. What I want to do is create a joint in here. Oh, it's going to freak out when I want to flatten everything. But I'm okay with that. Go ahead and hit J for joint. This guy's grounded, so I know I want to do the joint on this guy. You wait until your little pancake thing is on the... If you want to retain, I can't go up. I really want to click that thing in the middle of the circle. So I'm going to just hold Control and then go to there. I'm going to do the same thing over on this one. Is that what I want to do, though? The tricky thing is I really don't like to create joints unless I have to, because when I pull them, when I lay everything flat to create my cut layout for my shopbot, it really fights it. So I'm struggling here on whether I would or would not do that in this case. To make it parametric, I think that's the most important part here. So let's go ahead and do it. Just turn off this construction plane. So again, hold Control, do that guy, and then it's going to be rigid, but I want it to be depth less I. That's locked in. The shelf here is not locked in, nor is it. So this is going to be our issue because we should have locked that in first. Revert. See, it pulls it to there, but it doesn't know that it's supposed to actually be on that face, which is okay. You can come in here and just do another extrude. That sketch is always going to be off. Delete that. We're going to make that one again. So let's do a new component. Make sure you're in your top level, upper shelf. Sketch on, put on our grounded object, just so it doesn't, we don't have that issue again. Slice it, rectangle. I go collinear and coincident. Stop sketch, extrude. Pull it out. To object, click on that face, extend, okay. And we'll do this again. I'm going to extrude, turn on our sketch. Minus blind pocket, join, okay. Go back to here, create our midplane from that and that. Okay. Now we're going to make sure that our upper shelf is active. And what we're going to do is just mirror over the feature of adding these, I'll call them tabs. Select mirror plane, that guy there, okay. Now if we go to our top level, let's turn off that sketch again. Turn off this guy too. Okay, so we got our top shelf done. Let's go ahead and make our bottom shelf and then we'll do the ribs. We'll do this a little faster because I'm just getting a little impatient. Let's go. So there's another way we can do this that's still parametric. Let's do new component, shelf. Okay, let's create a new sketch. This time let's do it on want those to lock. Do it on that plane. And we'll go ahead and slice over here so that gets everything else out of the way. And we'll just create a big rectangle to start with. Let's see, these guys are so what I want is it's hard to do it looking at the slice. The fire alarm was just going off in the shop, but it's not a, it says AC loss, but we have power still, so not sure. Let's go ahead and we'll make it just swing. Slide in that way. So this, I want collinear, this guy to that. Why not? Sometimes you got to project these. Just project that and then go collinear again. Probably just picking the wrong one, but that's okay. Dimension from there to here. I want it to be, let's just have it stick out ply. Tab sticking out far. Do the same thing on this side. Project it again. Apply. Well, stop sketch. I'm doing this wrong. Sometimes you just got to be willing to throw up your hands and say, that's not the right way to do it. Let's create a sketch here, rectangle. There. Make it collinear. Thing's kicking my butt. So let's go rectangle here. I mean, here's the basic shape you want. You want that guy just to tie in there. This distance. Sure, I just keep using a different plane than what I actually have. Let's just go project. Okay. Rectangle. That would be 2 ply. Just go ahead and hit stop sketch. Oh, I want that to be collinear. That guy. I'll use midlines as good points of reference. So should go ahead and hit that, make it a construction line. And then just gonna make it symmetrical about that line. 1, 2, and everything's locked down. Stop sketch, extrude. Got this bit of an issue here. Actually go cancel. Let's go back to that sketch. This line's not actually going through, so we'll just make it go through. Stop sketch, extrude, apply, body. Okay, let's turn off our section analysis now. That's under analysis. So we've got that, but we don't have the actual tabs that we need. So let's go ahead and turn that sketch back on. And we'll just extrude it as well. And again, the reason I'm doing it this way will become more clear once that works. But then we'll do this right. I want to do it right now. So here's let's go back to our sketch. I'll show you something. So if we do this, you've got 0 clearance. Once you pull this board back, it won't slide into this slot very well. So what I want to do is actually go that times 1.05. We have 5% bigger just to give us some clearance. Yeah. And now we can pattern it. And create the mirror of the feature of that mirror plane. That'll give me my front ones. But then you get my back ones. I might need to do is actually do a what would be the easiest way? Just going to create another one down here. So I'll just do another rectangle here. Let's fix that guy. Just make it easier to. So all we really have is this rectangle here. and then a line. It goes from there to there. Okay, and then we'll do the same dimensions there to here. We call that ply. Here to there, we call that 2-ply. And here to there, call that ply. We just use our reference times 0.05. Sketch. Let's go back to this first extrude. Cancel the second extrude, I mean. Turn off that sketch. Back to our top level. Do the same thing with our rib, and then we'll component that across or pattern that across. So you can do it two ways. You can start on the bottom. Yeah, you can start on the bottom and pull it down and up. Or you can start on the face and pull it across. I think in this scenario, we're going to go with the face. And we're in our top level, so new component, call it upper rib. Sketch, middle face, because this is the one that's not patterned. I'm going to slice it because I don't want all those other ones in my way. Front view, do a rectangle. Similar to before. Gonna project that face. That face, I just want to make sure those are there. Dimension. Again, I just want it to be apply. This clearance here. Oh, again, apply. And for the clearance on the top, go to that. 0.5. Do that so it knocks those out. And then stop sketch, extrude, U, and U. Apply. New body, okay. So there we go. We have our first rib, and we're just going to go ahead and go back to our top level, activate it, and then we will create a pattern, rectangular pattern. We're going to do a component, that component, direction, that direction. And go symmetric. And here's what we have to remember. What do? We did depth at 2 minus 1. divided by 2 plus 1. Okay. And so here's the big advantage. You can see their upper ribs again, just like the side panel. You've got 7 components, or you've got 7 iterations of one component instead of 7 individual components. So I'm going to save it there. I mean, that's essentially what I see in this design here. Now, if you wanted to create the shape on the bottom here, you could just create a new sketch, make sure you're in that. Shift N to shift to color view. And you can tell the 2 pinks, it's because it's one component. It just helps you identify that they aren't individual, they're iterations of the same component. So Shift N to get out of that. It's been an hour, so I think that's a good representation of how to use patterning and components. And we can look down here. What's this? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So there's 24 operations to get here, as opposed to, and again, this is just for management wise, like if you scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, so, and most of this is dog bones. Oh, let me show you that, because most of what I see on there is the dog bone issue. So let's go, now that everything is set, we can, let's start with our side panel. We'll go ahead and isolate it. And we're going to dog bone all of these real quick. So we're going to create a sketch. Let's make sure it's active. Create a sketch on this face. And what we're going to do is, here's what well, do it the right way, do it the wrong way. I want to, here's one way to do it. An offset, I know that if I'm using a 1/4 inch cutter, I do 0.08 for my offset. Circle, center point circle, I do those. That's one way I create my dog bones. Stop sketch, extrude that. Nice apply. Then I can iterate that across. What's another way? Another way you can do this is create a sketch, create a circle, right click, just call this 0.5. It's dimension, but it's not located. So now I'm going to dimension, right click, pick circle arc tangent, 0. Oh, I'll do this first. Go to there, make that 5. Put you on put it on there. Dimension, right click. First time doing this, I saw John Saunders do it in his video. Dimension, right click. That doesn't seem any faster to me. Was that because I didn't actually use any combines to create the components, it would be quicker to think about this. Go back into this sketch here. Stop sketch. To make it parametric, you can do a pattern. It's just not the best way. One of the tricks here is to just know when to utilize other features. And the one I want to utilize here is actually just to do a pattern of the feature. So if I pattern in the sketch, then I still have to go through on my extrude and click all those little nuanced points to get these dog bone ears. So I'm going to go ahead and create the pattern out here. Rectangular. I'm going to choose features, that direction, that. It's weird, that ghosting. I'm going to do it 7 times. We're going to go. Oh, it's because it's showing me on the other component as well. Just go distance, width, top, -2. Hit it. Okay. And there you go. Those dog bone ears for those. On this face, just go ahead and do something similar. We'll do all 4 of these together. So I'll just sketch here, offset, 8, instruction, C for circle. offset 0.08. See for circle. Stop the sketch. I have to do this twice because the depths are different. So extrude 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, minus 5. I turn that sketch back on. Extrude again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now this time, instead of distance, I'm going to go to object, to there. And you got to check that if you want to go through. Okay. I can turn that sketch off. Now that both of those features work on that side, I like to create kind of top-level components in the component. So here, I'm going to go ahead and create another mid-plane, just because I know that these two were created symmetrical. So I'm going to create the mid-plane there. Now I can go back into my side panel and mirror. Can mirror that over. So create a mirror feature of the features, that one and this one. Select my mirror plane, that guy. Okay. Turn off that mirror plane. There you go. So the side panel's been dog boned fully. So now if I un-isolate, the beautiful thing is that so has the other side panel. So now I just have the upper panel, the lower panel, and one of those. So let's go ahead and do the upper shelf first. Activate it. Let's isolate it. Here's where, so I can just do sketch here, offset 0.08. Sketch. Actually just do H for hole. I'm going to select the points. Don't worry, they won't be this big. It's just what it defaults to. Just make sure you click on those. Depths, we'll just do apply. Diameter, we will do bit. What did you call it? You called it cut. There. And okay, that one's done. I'll go to the bottom shelf, activate it, isolate it. Do the same thing, sketch, offset, 8. Sketch, H for hole. Make sure you're picking the right ones. So there's 3 each here, so we should end up with 12. Every time. And 12, it remembered the rest of our settings. Okay, so that's done. Let's just do one of the upper ribs because that's going to go all the way across. So isolate, same story. Let's just go sketch it on the face, offset 8. sketch, create a hole. I did notice on that hole, it lost its parameter. Which, I don't know, it's just a common thing, but that works. We can go ahead and unisolate it. Home view, activate our top level. And there we go. We have created all those dog bone joints, and that all looks good to me. Now, my typical path to get this into the CAM operation, which would be the next step, would be to go ahead and I would suppress this joint. Because that one's ground, I would then create new joints. So J, hold on a second, why is that? A revert, okay, so that's just from that. Suppress, capture the position. Now I'm gonna create new joints. Instead of rigid, I'm going to make it planar. And I'm going to flip it. And then I will move it. I'll just go height plus cutter. I did it that way to make sure that these pockets stay on the same side up. So then I'm just gonna, you can right click and do repeat joint. Do that surface there. And that guy, flip it. And I'll just move it down here. Repeat joint. Flip it. Move it down here. It'd be nice if you could just take this whole group and pull them all down together, but it's okay. Just keep repeating joints. There's also another great add-in, which I don't know why I'm not using this. I think I have it. Oh, no, I don't have it on here. Maybe that's why. There's a great add-in called Nester. So if you go to add-ins, Fusion 360 App Store, you can just keep going through, and you can actually pick your ground plane essentially, and then select all the other faces, and it will do all the planar alignment for you. And then you can go in and adjust locations for nesting. So I'm just going to leave it like this for now. Go ahead and hit save for about an hour and a half. And if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy it. When I make edits, I always just scroll back in my timeline, go back to home view, and from there, let's go ahead and make some edits to these items. So height, let's see, between fingers crossed, it didn't work. It's very strange. Why would that? Oh, because I did. I know why. Okay, so when I did my rectangular pattern for those, I did depth instead of pop. Two. If I can make this, there you go. I'm just going to keep finding little tweaks that I messed up on. Come here, slice it. So this should be collinear to that. Stop sketch. Hit a hole. I change the width at the bottom. Nope. To the solve, please delete or modify one of the following constraint dimensions. The solution could be to just actually make a rectangle. I call it bottom. And make it coincident. Then this guy here. Back up. I call this width bottom and 2. That's fine. Some sketch funkiness here. That all looks fine. I think. Instead of making that collinear, if I bump this guy up, dimension U to U, I call U ply. Good. A line here. Whale. All right, so there you go. You can modify things and you can break your whole design. But at least now you only have about 24 features to go through. I hope this helps. Kind of frustrated with the way it turned out, but I think it should have showed you a couple tips. Maybe that'll help you out. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.